Welcome, everybody, to a special podcast. This one is about alien conspiracy. There was an alien that landed on Earth a long time ago, and he was a weird boy. Everybody knew something was weird that knew him close because he had a tail. And one day, during a full moon, he grew to be this giant monster like this gorilla creature. And he was going to destroy the planet. And they lobbed off his tail. And then he was just kind of normal, but he wasn't.
All right, everybody, I'm on board with our Dragon Ball podcast. We are permanently changing it. No longer will we be the evil safety dudes. Dragon Ball podcast for life. That's all we're doing from now on.
Are we not? The
that's
Dragon Ball
yeah. No, that's
podcasters?
that's exactly what we are. You hit the nail on the head.
Well, what did we used to be?
It doesn't matter. Irrelevant.
I think we were the evil safety dudes.
I mean, all right. I guess you could suck me back into it.
Okay, and what was it about, though? That's a cool name.
The evil safety dudes?
Yeah.
Well, we are a podcast about how not to die at work, about
Okay.
everything OSHA. Pretty phenomenal way to get some good safety and health-related topics.
All right. Well, I'm joined in the podcast for the newly rebuilt podcast for
Newly renovated.
Yeah, by AJ Hanscom, and he is a OSHA authorized outreach instructor who this specific topic today is permit required confined spaces, and it's probably one of the first courses you ever taught, and it's probably one of the first topics you ever presented at a conference.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Permit required confined space was.
So you've been doing this for a while now.
It's one of my best focuses. I actually really enjoy permit required confined space. But thanks for having me here. I'm joined in the podcast for it with Mr. Aaron Iacino, a specialist in safety and health in construction and the general industry, which actually involved him doing some confined space study himself. So the two of us are going to tackle confined space, or at least part of it today, that's for sure.
Yes, sir. Before we get to that, what's been new with you?
Personally, I got so excited. I can't stop talking. I'm just telling like random people that I don't even know, but I'm pumped. I bought some 80-pound dumbbells because dumbbells are not easy to find right now. So I just got some big 80-pounders over at Dunham's, and I was thrilled.
You got two?
Got two.
Can
they don't
you-
even match.
Can you do one rep of 80 in a curl?
Like a bicep curl. Yeah, if I want to rip my bicep in half.
That's like huge. What do you use them for then?
So presses, doing champagne press, bench press.
Okay, all
and
right.
I'm rowing
Working the
them.
chest, that makes sense.
Heck yeah. Well, your back too. Yeah, bunch
You
of
got to
rows.
work to curling them?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, sure, someday. it was great too. My wife gave me so much grief because I had to carry him up to the front of the store. So I picked him up in the back of the store. I had to farmer's carry 160
There you
pounds
go.
up front.
That's a good workout. I think they have shopping carts there.
I
but-
think they do.
Yeah.
It was too late. I was already like, these are the ones I want. She's like, do we get a cart? I was like, we don't need a cart. I just carried him up front.
Nice.
How about you, man? What's going on with you? Anything new?
Everything's going good. We got a groundhog problem on my house, and so I'm
You had to explain
Try-
to me
I'm
what a
try-
groundhog looks like.
it's a whistle pig. It's
Now that's one I've never heard.
a groundhog.
I've
a
heard woodchuck.
woodchuck. Whistle
I've heard
pig.
groundhog,
They're all the
whistle
same,
pig.
and they're terrible varmints and destroy
Who on earth called it a
foundations.
whistle
And
pig?
they've been eating everything my wife's been planting, so they gotta go. So
Just kidding. That's been me.
I've been
I've been in your garden.
I've
every
been
night.
researching all the different ways to get rid of them. So that's something I've been doing lately.
I've heard a really good way to get rid of them is by approaching them and selling things to them door to door.
Yeah, that would work.
Drives them away.
Inviting them to church works.
Oh yeah, never see them again.
Yeah, never see them again.
Right? Ask them for $20.
Right
Actually,
now-
what you got to do is borrow them $20 and then constantly remind them that they owe you $20.
That might work. For now, I started off with cayenne pepper. I bought a pound of cayenne pepper, and I sprinkled it all over their holes. They're
would
supposed to
not.
hate pungent and spicy.
I would not want to be like, because they dig face first, right?
I assume so.
I mean,
yeah,
I would
that'd
not
be
wanna be,
weird
like,
dig
digging-
backwards. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose, but like,
The really talented ones could dig in both directions, but the average ones just digs face first.
it would suck though to be like digging and having a great day, being like, oh yeah, I'm out having a good time, and then all of a sudden like face full of pepper. Like,
Yeah.
No, I'd be
Yeah.
having a bad day. I wouldn't go
Hopefully
there,
they move out at that point.
right.
But I might have to trap them and stuff, but I don't know. But anyway, so today we got permit required confined spaces and a super serious topic. I remember
is.
the first concealed weapons permit course that I taught.
Okay.
People were like,
We're tying
wow,
that
you're
into,
teaching like really dangerous stuff. And I'm like, this? Yeah, it's serious, but I've been teaching people how to go into permit required confined spaces for years. You want to talk about serious? That's serious.
Right.
I mean, it's all serious, but,
You're talking about a situation that, like, if everything goes perfect, nothing to write home about. But when
Yeah.
something goes wrong in a permit
Yeah.
required confined space,
yeah.
I mean, you're talking life or death.
Yeah.
That person's got minutes.
And we've had, deaths around here. It's been years ago.
Yeah.
North Sioux City, 2 plumbers died,
Yep.
In a manhole. And we've had one out a couple years back at a different city south of town at a big plant during an expansion. They had a confined space death there. And there's just been a ton. I mean, we can go on and on and on and on and on. Just go to the OSHA fatal fact sheet and just start looking up them.
Oh, they're rough.
It's some of the most depressing ones that I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the ones on farms, like where the kid and the cousin die, and then the dad dies going in for him, and then the uncle goes in and dies going for them.
That one
You're
was
wiping
really
out
sad.
like all the men of 2 generations in one fell swoop.
Oh my gosh, that was really rough.
And that's not a singular event.
No, that
It's
happens.
like a common event.
Well, more
not like once a
common.
month, but it's not like you would think something that terrible, maybe that happened once.
Right.
No, it's happened several times.
Yeah, it continues to happen.
Which is terrible. Terrible.
Ugh.
So, as far
It's
as
a terrible thing.
permit required confined spaces, let's play the quiz AJ.
It's everybody's. We needed like a theme song for this one.
Let's just make one up.
Quiz AJ.
That was like the McDonald's one. We're going to get sued now.
That's something totally different. I don't even want to do the McDonald's one now.
Okay, I felt it was really close. But yeah, all right. So you get to make up the jingle for the...
Every single time.
Well,
I'll do
you
it.
just do the first one.
It's too
I'll
late.
do the next
it's
one.
established.
Okay.
Every time you're like quiz AJ, I'm gonna be like da 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 quiz AJ.
Da, 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 da.
Quiz AJ.
Okay.
I like it.
All right. So anyway, the AJ quiz, it goes like this. First question. What is the difference between a permit required confined space and a non-permit required confined space?
The presence of a hazard.
Okay. So both of them are the same except one has a hazard and the other one does not.
Correct.
Okay. Number 2. Give me an
Okay.
example of a non-permit confined space.
A typical non-permanent required confined space, and of course this is in general, doesn't mean it
Okay.
couldn't be permanent required.
Right.
But a typical non-permanent space is my favorite one to pick on is to help wrap people's brains around the idea of permanent
Okay.
required is drop ceilings.
Okay.
That's like my favorite one.
Right. Yeah. Like also like crawl spaces, attics, things
Right.
like that. All right. Give me an example of permanent required confined space. That generally
Like
9 times out of
Big
10.
chlorine tank.
Okay. A huge chemical vessel.
There you go.
Sewer manholes. All
Sewer
right.
manholes all the time.
Okay. Now here's a tougher one for you. Those were warm up ones.
Okay.
All right. So what are the 3 criteria that all 3 have to be in place for it to actually be an OSHA defined confined space?
I was trying to think of like a really stupid answer, but I couldn't come up
One
with
way in and one way out.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I didn't want
Which
to
is not a dumb answer, but that's the number one answer
right.
when I'm teaching.
That's
Because I ask people that
that's the one thing people remember too.
because they, a lot of times people come to class and they're like, I'm not going to learn anything. I already know about confined space.
know it.
So I'll hit them with that. What makes a confined space?
One way out.
And someone always.
Someone. So
One
that
way
was
in.
I
It's like
believe.
sniper training.
Like if I could look back in time, I would say that was just an accidental misinterpretation when the regs were first written of the idea of having limited entry or exit.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why ANSI had to define it.
I think so. Well, ANSI and OSHA now, they've both written a bunch of extra stuff that says limited means using your hands and feet or contorting your body or having any awkward posture when entering into or exiting from the space or any space that would limit or restrict rescue. And that's when you get into the whole idea of limited entry and exit.
So that is the first one.
That's one.
Limited means of access or egress, which the definition is contorting your body or
Yeah, that-
using your
yeah.
hands to get in and out. All right, so you got one. What's the other 2?
It has to be big enough to physically enter. Your whole body has got to go into the space.
Okay.
The whole person. Oh, and it also says and perform work.
Okay.
So you can't just curl up into a ball and be like, aha, this is human sized.
Right.
It's got to be big enough to curl up into a ball and slightly
And
perform
do
work.
work. All
And
right.
then the last one was not designed for continuous human occupancy.
Ding, ding, ding. We got a winner, Mr. AJ 3 for 3.
I've done this a couple times.
I know you
keep
have.
softballing them at me, which I
Yeah,
appreciate.
yeah, those were all easy for us. But, every time we teach in class, unless they've been through one of our trainings
yeah.
before, nobody's answering that.
No, well, and
They're
I
always saying one way in, one way out. And I'm like, listen, a confined space, a permit required confined space, or a non-permit, required confined space. Could have 1,000 ways in.
Oh, yeah.
And 1,000 ways out, and still be a permit or a non-permit required confined space. And then I bring up the example of the sewer system. It's like how many manholes do you think are on that line? How many ways in and ways out? Doesn't mean it's not a permit required confined space because it has 1,000 ways in.
Right. Exactly.
Know? But that's what everybody thinks, and it's just not accurate.
They get real hung up on that.
Because you could die. It's like, hey, is this a permit required confined space? Nope, there's 2 hatches. Oh, okay, let's just go in it then.
Should we ventilate all this chlorine gas out of here first? No, there's 2 hatches.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's important to define what OSHA defines as a confined space, and then what makes it a permit.
It is. It's very important.
Okay, well, let's go to the tougher question then, number 4. I thought I was done.
Quiz AJ.
Quiz AJ. Number 4.
All right.
You said to graduate from a regular confined space to the permit required confined space, there has to be the presence of 1 hazard.
At least.
Yes, but does OSHA define what those hazard is? Does a guy with a machete count as because that's hazardous? So if there's a guy with a machete in the attic, is it now a permit required confined space according to OSHA?
So there's a huge list. They made a list in the standard of automatic things that make it
a huge list.
Well, off the top of your head, it's like a dozen things.
Maybe 8.
But then the very at the bottom of that, if you're reading through it in the reg, it also says, and then any other hazard which could cause harm. So not only did they
pretty much anything then.
Right, they made this huge list that was flammable gas value greater than 10% the lower flammable
well
limit.
Let me ask it differently. What are those main ones that they kind of meant?
Okay, so there's the flammable gas value greater than the lower flammable limit.
Then 10% of the lower flammable limit. Yeah.
Then there's the presence of combustible dust greater than the lower explosive limit,
or where you can't see past 5 feet.
Well, that's what they say is the lower explosive limit. There's so many on that left side of the column. I'm drawing a blank.
You got to visualize the slide. Right. So steam.
So underneath, we got to go to the bullet points underneath that first one, because then there is oxygen deficient or oxygen enriched.
Yeah.
And then there is, we did the flammable gas value, oxygen deficient, oxygen enriched.
2 that start with an E.
Lower explosive limit. What are the ones that start with an E?
Engulfment.
Oh, you're up at the top right.
And entrapment.
Yeah, you're up on the other side of the
and
the
then
PowerPoint
if you go,
already.
we're sorry guys, we're visualizing the slides. Private
then
party here.
Under those, you've got the exposure of any physical hazard, and it says pneumatic, hydraulic, and mechanical. Yeah. And then it has any exposed electrical. Yeah. And then under that, it says steam or corrosives.
Yep.
I wanted to finish that bottom left-hand side, and I can't remember. There's a couple more right over there, and they're escaping me. Yeah. Oh, any ideal age situation. That's the very bottom one.
Yep. If there's any chemicals that make it immediately dangerous to life and health, or any chemicals that are over the permissible exposure.
That's
limit.
what it was.
Yeah.
Over the acute limit.
Okay.
It's an acute hazard over the PEL.
So
there you go.
Those are the main ones that we're looking at. Like, if I'm evaluating confined space, all right, if they said, Aaron, is this a confined space? I'm going, well, can I fit in it?
Right.
And do work? If it's yes, okay. I mean, how do I get in? Oh, it's got a hatch. Okay. I would have to contort my body, use my hands. Okay. All right. Was this thing designed for people? No, it wasn't. What was this designed for then? It was designed for holding chemicals. Okay. So it's a confined space. And then when I'm going through the list, and we have that nice form, and those are all spelled out. All right, what are the hazards?
It's so easy to not forget when you're doing that stuff.
Can I get trapped in this thing? Can I get engulfed in dry or liquid?
And that entrapment is any sloping bottom.
Yeah. Is it a flat bottom? Things like that. Just start going down the list. So, all right. Well, I think those are all helpful definitions for everybody to get kind of a base. What about any actual OSHA confined space issues that we have worked or that you heard about that we feel the listening audience should be aware of? Anything super special? I was talking about the one south of town. That was a bad one. I talked to the safety guy who was working at the time, and he drew a big diagram for me on it. How they were welding in there and tried to have stuff purge, but things weren't moving right, so there was this accumulation of bad air, and it got to the level of the one guy, and then that caused him to fall because he was elevated in the confined space.
Oh, yeah.
And the other guy self-rescued, kind of crawled out.
Oof.
That was a bad one. The one in North Sioux, I didn't work that one, but, it's Sioux City folklore. Most workers know about that one.
We've had, I think it was one of our OSHA 30s that you and I were tag team teaching.
Okay.
So I don't know if you remember the guy, but the day I taught confined spaces, he was actually on one of the crews that was there.
Nuh-uh.
Mm-hmm.
Did he confirm?
You know the guy. I can't remember his name.
Did he confirm the folklore? Because what I heard was plumbers cracked open the manhole, didn't test the air, didn't alert rescue, didn't go in with a way to do non-entry rescue. Basically didn't follow any of the rules.
So they
went in there, bad air, done.
Yep.
Then the guy goes in to rescue him, boom, done.
Yep. I mean, that's basically it. They were actually told, so standing on street level, they actually had meters. And standing outside, their meters were going off.
So they did test the space and still went in?
No, they didn't test the space. They were literally just standing out on the street.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But that's what the guy told you?
Yeah. He said they were up there with the city, and the city said, we got to do this right. He goes, I'm going to contact some people so we can do this whole entry right and get everything done. Make sure we can ventilate this whole space before anybody goes in there, because your one truck that you brought isn't going to be enough.
Okay.
And then the moment he walked away, this other gentleman who was up there said that he went to go back to his work truck to see if they had any more ventilated trucks. And when he turned around, the one worker was already standing over the manhole looking down at the other worker in the manhole, and he opens his truck door to get out. Or maybe it was just behind his truck, but he said he went to go jog over there, and the other guy was already climbing in. And that
so
was
one
it.
guy slipped in when he wasn't supposed to, died, and another guy tried to do an entry rescue.
Yep.
It's terrible. I heard a statistic that 60% of all confined space deaths are from wannabe rescuers.
That's the BLS statistic, Bureau of Labor Statistics.
That you're more likely to die as the wannabe rescuer.
Right.
They call it would-be rescuer, but wannabe is a more bad term. And I'm
trying
to
be.
Yeah, I grew up. Right. It was bad to be a wannabe. You're a wannabe. Yeah. You're a poser. So I'm trying to establish that as the term. You don't want to be rescued. You're a wannabe rescuer.
Right.
You're a poser rescuer.
Your heart rate's up. Respirations are up. They say your exposure is going to be greater than the person who was just in there.
The first guy just popped down there all calm, and then maybe something pushed all the O2 oxygen out of there, and he just kind of went into a nice, calm slumber. But the other guy, hopped up on adrenaline, breathing hard.
He's going to get a lot more of an exposure before he goes down.
And logically, I always try to walk everybody through it in the classes that I teach. Like, how do you literally do that? Like in a manhole, how do you literally go down 6, 10, 12 feet on a ladder, grab a limp body that is giving you zero assistance, pick it up, and climb up a vertical fixed ladder 6, 10, 12 feet and fit that body out?
Right.
All while holding your breath.
Oh, it's not happening.
It's not happening.
Here's the other crazy thing, though, that happens. And we went over this, and we just got to do a really fun respiratory protection class where we were covering stuff like escaping from anhydrous ammonia.
Okay.
And if you hold your breath and you try to escape from something like that, or a toxic cloud like H2S, right?
Okay.
If you don't have anything to pinch off your nose,
right,
it'll actually still fill up your sinuses, and it'll make you cough and gag. So even though you're holding your breath, you ever tried to hold your breath while you're coughing?
Hold your breath while you're coughing. It's hard.
That's what's going to happen. You're going to be holding your breath, and all of a sudden you'll have like this, like forming in the back of your throat.
Well, even
the whole
anhydrous, if your eyes are open, it's attacking your eyeballs.
It's going to burn the living daylights out of you.
Yeah. So go ahead.
You won't be able to force it. Like hold your breath and get in there. It'll open you up in moments.
Anyway.
In moments.
I knew guys for anhydrous leaks that would carry clear plastic bags in their pocket at all time, so they could put it on quick. Hold their breath, put the bag on, pinch the bag off around their neck.
Oof.
So they got that breath in their lungs. And then when that gives out, they probably got 1 or 2 in that bag, but they could see.
Right. And it's not like burning your ears, burning your eyes.
That was their emergency exit respirator.
I mean, that's
crazy.
It's nuts, but honestly, that could be the difference in an emergency
life
rescue.
And death. Yeah. Not OSHA approved respirator.
Well, who was? I think it was one of the gals we were training with. She was like, I used to work in a place where they had these emergency response ones, and she goes, you know what you do with those? And our instructor was like, what do you do? And she goes, you'd take it off, you'd open the pack, you'd throw it at the cloud, and then you'd run like heck. I was like, oh, geez,
I've seen a lot of escape respirators in these chemical plants, and they're actually pretty cool. They're a teeny little bottle. not the breathing barriers we give everybody in CPR,
Right.
the ones that go in your pocket, and not the full-on ambu bags, but the middle one in that red
Oh
case.
yes, it's just the nose cover.
Yeah, so it's like the nose and mouth cover on a little bottle of oxygen.
You just hold it.
And so you just put it on, turn it on, and you could go.
Just run.
You could actually run pretty far. I mean, some of those escape bottles give you, 5-10 minutes.
You can run pretty far in 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. So, no, I think those are cool. But the whole plastic bag thing, I thought that was kind of scary. It's like, you might want to get another job if that's what you're doing every day, making sure you got your plastic bag on you so you don't die. Because, anyway, we can talk about that all day long. But, so back to confined spaces. So, yeah, we've had a lot of local deaths, and I'm sure everybody in the listening area, wherever you're from, you could probably go and research some local deaths for yours. It's real.
There are some gnarly ones. Our instructor down in Omaha, he tells. To make it short, basically, there's a person who had his own company where his employees were cleaning the inside of tanker vessels on rail cars. And it was supposed to be a very, very delicate confined space entry into the rail car. And they had to go in these super intrinsically safe outfits and everything because they were blasting.
Okay.
Everything had to be static bonded. So then there couldn't be any static at the discharge tip, no static in the entire suit. And he didn't train his employees. And then, of course, he wasn't minding confined space. So there was none of the procedure done for any of it. And he eventually blew up a car with 2 people in it and killed them both.
Man.
The dude got arrested, went to jail for it.
Wow.
OSHA gave him several citations for willful violations. And then the crazy thing is he actually did so well with it the first time, he got out of jail and went back and started doing it again and blew up another person.
That's just messed up.
Yeah, kept going and doing it.
That reminds me of another real-life OSHA case out in California. They were getting busted for confined space and lockout-tagout violations. Okay.
So what was the parameters? Like, what were they, like a cleaning company? Or?
No, it was food manufacturing.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so they were getting busted. They've already been busted by OSHA for failure to follow the confined space regs and the lockout-tagout regs.
Okay.
And then this incident happened, which made it all worse because then everything was a willful and repeat.
Oh, no.
And there was some personal fines and jail time, just like in your story. So this guy goes into this huge oven, this maintenance guy.
I know this story.
It's permit required confined space.
There you go. It took me a minute to catch up.
Everything met. It was definitely permit required confined space. Definitely had those 3 and the hazard. Well, he doesn't lock and tag it out. He doesn't follow any of the permit required confined space rule. He goes in and he's deep in it. And his coworkers didn't know where he's at. They thought he was in the can.
Sure.
So they shut the oven and started it. And it runs in a 2-hour cycle. And he was in there, cooked to a crisp, dead.
Oh, my gosh.
And yeah, so the safety guy and the manager got some jail time, personal fines, and then the company got hit so bad because of this repeats and willfuls.
Oh, my gosh.
Terrible situation. So,
well, yeah.
Permit required confined space is no joke. Let me tell you one more.
Go for it.
One more.
I think that's more important.
So,
I think the stories are best.
So I got a call from a client, local client. He said, "Hey, man, we want you to teach permit required confined space to a bunch of our contractors. We're hiring a bunch of contractors. We got a grant that allows us to go into homes and free for low-income people do a thermal regulation service. So they use less heat and less air.
Okay.
Save energy bills.
Yeah.
So they'll go in there and they'll spray foam and they'll, all the little things to make that house more airtight. So they're not losing the heat, losing the cool, basically. And I said, okay, you're doing residential homes, so why do you need a permit required confined space class? That was just kind of weird to me.
Okay. I mean, I got
you.
Right?
Right? Because you got attics and crawl spaces.
Right, but you're thinking like, tanks, vessels.
Yeah. That's, usually that's what I'm dealing with, industrial workers.
Not like somebody just going up a ladder into a roof.
Yeah, or in an attic or a crawl space. So, so I go, do you mind asking why you want this class? He goes, well, this program that we're doing here now in Sioux City, it had been previously done in other cities, and they had a death, and we want to make sure we don't have a death.
Ooh.
And I go, okay, I want to make sure I'm training to the needs of the people, so why don't you tell me about the death? So he said this contractor was in a crawl space of a residential house, and he had one of those industrial foam packs, which are hardcore. It's like got 2 tanks. You turn on each tank, 2 hoses go into one gun and it comes out, and it's like
mixes right there.
It's not
mid-air.
like those little teeny cans of that Ready Foam. It's like hardcore industrial stuff.
Okay.
Isocyanides.
And so they're spraying these isocyanides inside.
He was in a confined space, but it wasn't a permit required confined space because there were no hazards. But he brought his own hazards to the party.
Which
it was BYOH. Bring your own hazards.
Bring your own hazards.
And that's what he did.
I'm my own hazard.
Yeah, so he's thinking like, oh, this space ain't hazardous, but he didn't realize what he was doing in there. So he's in a literal confined space, starts spraying that industrial foam pack. Boom, that space fills up with isocyanide, poor ventilation, and he died.
Oh, my gosh.
Residential.
Well, I mean, what I really like out of that story, though, is there's an employer that was like, you know what? I've heard about the hazards. Instead of just ignoring me, be like, that was a one-time thing. There's dozens of these crews doing this all over, and one guy, psh.
I'm glad I asked because I would have just kind of done a standard permit-required confined space course.
Yeah.
Really industrially orientated.
2 big lessons.
Talking about entrapment, engulfment, and all that stuff. But I really, since I knew why they needed that, I really spent a lot of time on.
Heck yeah.
Making a regular confined space into a permit-required.
I like it a lot.
Because that's addressed in our regular course, but, then to actually detail that out was important. All right, so any new OSHA updates, regs on confined spaces? What's the latest and the greatest
something
on OSHA
we were
updates?
just talking about is that this big GHS update coming up.
Okay.
We always know that when you've got confined space, there's a few standards that are automatically lumped into it. And I always think the GHS is one of them. Lockout, tagout's an automatic take.
Right.
But I always think GHS is because you have to go through those chemicals. Like everything you have to go through it all. Where's your vapor density? What's your upper, lower explosive limits? Like all those things.
That's in the regs. Everybody's got to know the modes of exposure, consequences of exposure, signs and symptoms of exposure.
So there is more updates coming, and we don't know what the full breadth is going to be from this new GHS update. So I would say as far as OSHA updates go that might concern confined space, I think this new GHS update might have something to say about that.
All right. I know of the biggest update that I think was the construction adopting basically the general industries confined space standards. That's been a few years ago, but construction's always kind of been like, we're exempt from all that stuff.
Right.
Not anymore.
Nope.
You got to identify your confined spaces.
Even in construction.
Yeah.
Yep.
And OSHA can come on your site and be like, oh, this is construction. Oh, may I please see your list of confined spaces?
Right. So you're installing vessels, you're
I
installing
haven't
tanks.
identified them yet.
Right, but you need to.
OSHA could be like, oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for the free hazards.
Yeah. So that's a big deal. So everybody in construction, you are not exempt from these permit required confined space regulations.
Mm-mm.
You have your own 1926 regs on them now. And they pretty much mirror the 1910 ones, the general industry ones.
Just about identical. There's a few differences, but it's honestly not that much.
Let's talk about safety gear for confined space.
Okay.
Let's go easy. Vertical entry. What do you need?
So you've got your regular, it depends on what you're doing, but I would go immediately to your non-entry rescue.
So
tripod,
to do a
harness.
permit required confined space entry of a sewer manhole, what equipment should we have?
Well, if I don't know the hazards, I can't plan for that part, but I still would say things like tripod, harness, winch.
Yeah, you need a 4-gas meter, you need a permit, you need a tripod. Now, 2 apparatuses on that tripod. Back to, I forgot the theme. Ask AJ. What are the? Did I do it right?
I think
I added to it.
All you got to do is do it, and that means you did it right.
Okay. So, what 2 apparati? I don't know what's plural for apparatus.
So that's a unfair trick question, Mr. Aaron.
What 2 things do you need attached?
You don't need 2. You only need 1. But I'll break it down. So the reason Aaron's asking that is because all the time people will get a rescue, an SLR, a self-retracting, or SRL, self-retracting lifeline, and they will use that as a personnel winch or an equipment winch.
Yeah, to raise and lower people.
You still you could get it by with only having that one thing if that employee can enter that manhole via the ladder,
right?
And they don't have to get winched down. But that's the mistake a ton of people make. They're like, well, he's got to go down, so we're going to winch him down, or we're going to winch him back up. And they're using that lifeline as a winch.
Because it has an emergency rescue capability
It does.
feature on
Built
it.
right into it.
But that's for like a one-time rescue.
You're right.
And then they're using it day in and day out
All the time.
to raise and lower.
As a material winch.
It's not what it was designed for.
Not at all.
And it could give out because we're overusing it by 1,000-fold.
Because it's not what it was made for. You're right. But then if you want to do it the right way, you would need to go buy that material winch.
If you had like no ladder.
Designed for personnel.
Like with the boat swaying chair.
Yeah.
And somebody out there's like, that's not how you say it.
Botswan chair? I've heard it.
Yeah, there's so many different ways.
Right? And,
but
somebody
it's basically a
write us an
swing.
email.
It's a swing.
Yeah.
Don't write us an email because I don't care how you say it where you're from. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Shots fired. But there's also those harnesses
I
with
call
that
it
front clip.
pecan pie too and not pecan.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm starting trouble now.
You take you and your tomatoes out of here. So there's also those fall harnesses, though, that have that front clip.
Yeah, the D-ring
And so
in the
you
front
can
for
lower.
rescue.
Like, it actually is designed for up and down. And then
Which, unless you have a really good one, it's just not good for you.
No.
For, suspension trauma,
Right.
orthostatic hypotension.
Hypotension. Leading to orthostatic syncope.
Oh, fancy.
Right?
But, I'd say if you had no ladder, you get a boat swaying chair with material/personnel hoist. That's what I
actually
recommend.
has to be rated for people.
But I like them when they're rated for people and material. So I can't get in trouble when I lower a pump down or a motor down or a bucket down of tools as long as I'm not exceeding the rating on them.
Both.
So I like personnel/material hoist with the boat swing chair. You sit them on that, but then you have what AJ was saying, your self-retracting lifeline with the rescue capabilities hooked to the D-ring on the back for fall protection just in case he falls off the chair.
Right. Or
And
if maybe he goes down, you do have to perform emergency rescue.
So
you radio the guy, he doesn't answer.
So when you lower him down, they get off the chair, but they're still hooked up to your winch.
Right.
Yeah. So what else? We said permit. We said four-gas monitor, tripod with material/personnel hoist with the self-retracting lanyard with rescue capabilities, which very, very, very few people got that right.
Oh, my gosh.
What else do we need?
I mean, depending on the job, PPE, hard hat, safety glasses, gloves.
Definitely. If
typical
it's a vessel,
PPE,
maybe some chemical protective clothing if it's a chemical vessel.
Or maybe like a respirator.
Yeah, maybe a respirator depending on hazards. Maybe ventilation.
We got a set of ventilation.
Maybe.
Pressure? Are we doing negative
And if we're
pressure?
doing a manhole, we may need barricades around that manhole.
Might have to do barricades.
There's a ton of videos online with civilians just falling in those things because the construction workers got them opened.
Oh, yeah. They just walk by.
And I would not want to do that.
No.
That sounds like a very, 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 very bad injuries.
Well, it's a straight fall down, like 12 feet.
Yeah.
Like, you just go down.
Yeah. And Leonardo's not going to catch you.
No, he won't be there. He's up in New York. I don't know what you're talking about. Aaron's on crazy pills today.
And Raphael would watch you fall and wouldn't care.
He'd
and
probably laugh about
you.
it.
Yeah.
And then he'd throw you out.
Yeah.
Get out of our sewer.
Donatello, he would start designing fall protection nets for civilians.
Yeah, like for people.
And he would skateboard by and put them up when the construction workers wouldn't do it.
Mikey would take him down so the pizza guy could drop him pizza.
Okay, enough Ninja Turtle talk.
I know. I like today. We're doing Dragon Ball. We're doing Ninja Turtles. Like we got a lot of cartoons to get through today, I think.
Yeah, because the Ninja Turtles live in a permit-required confined space.
They never do the proper paperwork.
But no, and they don't have any. They don't have an attendant. Let's talk about the roles.
All right. Ask AJ.
Okay.
So you got your entrant, you got your attendant, you got your supervisor.
All
Your
right.
supervisor can be either the attendant or the entrant.
You're answering all my questions
I
before I ask
know.
them. That's awesome. So 3 roles, but I can do it with a minimum of 2 people.
Minimum of 2 people.
As long as they're all trained.
Appropriately trained.
Okay, question number 3 on this next segment of Ask AJ. So, I am a trained attendant.
Okay.
I also got my certification for entry rescue.
Bum, bum, bum.
My entrant is showing signs of hypoxia.
Oh, no.
There's barely any oxygen in there, and he's going down. I am trained as entry rescue.
Okay.
I also happen to be the attendant.
Okay.
Can I go in and
you look
rescue
really
him?
excited about this. You're like, he's going down with a big smile.
Can I go rescue him?
The short answer is no.
What
the long
parameters
answer.
would have to be in place for me to perform that entry rescue?
Okay, so you need, what I always remind people is you need some overlap. you need another qualified attendant, another
It has to be a trained attendant to replace you.
to show up and replace you. And as long as there's overlap where you're both an attendant at the same moment, then you can gear up and appropriately begin to
If you
perform
got the
entry
gear.
rescue. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you don't got the gear, if you don't have a trained attendant to relieve you, it's not happening.
I mean, if you were sitting there in like half dressed in your rescue gear, whatever it may
You have
have
an
been
SCBA
required,
laying around.
right? Well, I would assume like if you were rescue, I know you'd be sitting there with it like on your back.
Yeah, but if you're the
Like, you'd be
attendant,
like-
you're not doing that.
You'd be like half ready to go the whole time.
I mean, what are the chances of the attendant having rescue gear there, and they're trained in rescue gear, and they have an extra attendant sitting around doing nothing to replace them?
right? The chances are super low.
Yeah.
And if that was the case, you wouldn't even be the attendant. That other person would be the
Yeah,
attendant,
I
and
would
you would
just-
just be rescue.
I'd be on rescue.
Just be waiting.
All right, so let's talk about rescue. What's the best form in your opinion?
I think the best form, if it's possible, is still self-rescue.
100%.
If you can get yourself out of the space, that is the least amount of danger
I
for
will buy you
everybody involved.
lunch.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I just got free lunch.
No, you didn't.
Aw.
If you self-rescued, I would buy you lunch.
No, you heard it, people. I answered the question. He
if
said, I will buy you lunch.
Yeah, if I was your attendant,
Right?
and you come out all gasping and like half high from
Right.
like sucking vapors, you know, you're like huffing in there like on accident, you know, and you're like all loopy, and like, whoa, dude, whoa, I'm seeing stuff, and I'm like, wow, man, you self-rescued. That's awesome. Fist bump. Lunch is on me. I didn't have to wind you out. I didn't have to call 911. I didn't have to ponder if I'm going to watch you die or risk my own life to go
Right.
get you.
Start seeing who can take over.
You were secure enough in your manhood to just tap out and come on out. Instead, all these other guys with pride, they're like, I'm going to tough this out. And then, boom, they're gone.
Yep.
So totally buying you lunch if you self-rescue.
For sure.
Some would argue that the best form of rescue is not to need rescuing. You do
mean-
everything right. But, yeah, okay. Things went bad, unforeseeable.
That's
You know?
always that answer, though, that like ticks me
Yeah.
off with stuff. What's
Yeah.
the best way to not fall off a cliff? Oh, to not go climbing cliffs.
Yeah,
oh, okay,
yeah,
thank
yeah,
you for that.
okay.
What's the best way to not die in a car accident? Oh, don't drive a car. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Okay, thanks, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
So
we get it.
number 2,
Okay.
best form of rescue.
After self-rescue, non-entry rescue.
Okay, what is non-entry rescue?
Is rescue that is immediately available to the entrant that the attendant can begin to perform without waiting for rescue to arrive on the scene.
Where do
So-
they perform this non-entry rescue from?
Well, typically right there at the entry to the
Without
hole.
entering.
Without entering.
Yeah, so they're safe.
So we got like a winch or a pulley, or maybe we got big rope or something. We can just drag them straight out,
Yeah,
whatever.
or you
happens to
grab
be.
their foot and you
right
pull
without entering.
without entering.
Right, but you in some way you can get some sort of a force on that person and eject them.
And the worst and most dangerous form of rescue is,
Well, of course, calling rescue, emergency rescue,
and what's the more applicable terminology for entry rescue?
911.
No, the better name for it. What is it really? Do they ever really
Oh,
rescue people?
You're talking about body retrieval.
Yeah, body retrieval, body recovery.
Yeah.
Because if the brain goes 6 to 10 minutes without oxygen,
I'm
if
over
you-
here like I've never called rescue anything
if
else.
you
Aaron.
do come back, you're a vegetable.
Yeah, that's
so
bad.
by the time they get there, by the time they figure out the situation hazards, by the time
Right.
they suit up, by the time they get their gear, by the time they go in, it's body
It's
retrieval.
a really
It's
good
body
chance you
recovery.
won't make it.
So yeah, that's pretty bad. So, yeah, how many times have you audited permit required confined space entry and saw like you weren't part of it?
Okay.
Okay. Because if we're part of it, we're doing it right. But
Oh,
let's
yeah.
say you're just happen to be on the site when they were doing it. How many times have you seen them set up for non-entry rescue? Non-entry capable. Non-entry rescue capable.
I haven't seen anybody actually set up for non.
They don't do it.
No,
How many times you see a guy going permit required confined space on a rope?
I mean the ones that we do.
Unless we're
all the
making
time.
them. Well, yeah, when we're doing it, but
But
just
if
on
somebody
their
else-
own, it's
yeah.
just not happening.
No, I've only run into a handful.
I've had
just
people
walked onto
fight
a
me
job
on
site.
it, like, well, it's not required. I don't know if it's required. I'd have to several times in my career had to take them to the regulations and show them that it's required.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact wording, but something about it being like possible and feasible. If you can, you need to.
Yeah, you got to do it. All right, and it's just it's essential. That one time you're gonna need it, and you could just wench them out, and you're gonna save a life.
Well, and that's safety 101 over and over and over again. All the points we're always making. I mean, it could be confined space, it could be ladders, it could be fires. But if you do everything right every single time, you'll never know how many lives you saved, and that's the point.
Yeah,
Because screwing up one time and knowing that you cost one life that's something you got to live with for the rest of your entire life, and that's something I pray none of you ever have to do.
Yeah, I never want anyone to realize how important these rules are the hard way.
Right.
Because there are people like that. I've debated on getting some of them for our conferences. These guys who are like barely alive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't have one arm anymore and their face is all burned off,
Sure.
but now they go around and they do safety talks.
Right.
Have you seen those guys?
I've seen a few of them.
Yeah. I've debated about getting some of them because they're all about safety now.
Oh, yeah.
And now they're sharing their story to try to get you
They're hard to
learn
listen
from
to.
their mistakes.
The only one I've actually sat down and watched was an arc flash guy. I don't know.
That would be a bad one. I'm sure
I don't know any
pretty
confined space
disfigured.
guys. Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, let's just not have to go through
Right.
that to learn the importance. Let's just do it, which is so hard for humans,
It is.
just to do it on the chance that you'll need it. But
It's a slim chance that
Man,
you'll ever need it.
it's the law of averages, folks.
It's
You
always
know,
a win.
if
Eventually.
you've done it 500 times and it never hurt you, well, you're due.
It's coming.
You're like a slot machine that somebody put quarters in for hours and hours and hours and then left. It's due to pop. That's how people are out there.
Yep.
They're due to pop anytime with that major hazard. Doing it the wrong way, day in and day out. It's the law of averages. You know,
It will
Your
happen.
number's coming. There's gonna be an earthquake in California.
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't had a major one 3 years, watch out.
Here it comes.
It's coming. It's and that's the same thing with accidents. All right, well, that's all we have time for today on our podcast called the Evil Safety Dudes. And this specific episode is episode 25 on permit required confined spaces.
So don't go dying out there. Be careful.
Yeah, and make sure your folks are following the rules and train them and then audit them.
Heck yeah.
And then when they're not following the rules, reprimand them.
Audit them again.
Yes. Audit them until they pass every time.
There you
Because
go.
it's serious. All right, guys. Until next time, Aaron and AJ are out. See y'all.
Bye.